Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Jerez for the penultimate round of the 2017 Euroformula Open Championship. Last weekend in Monza, Harrison Scott claimed the championship in dominant fashion. 2 more victories for Scott, and that means that he has wrapped it up with 4 races to run. However, we have still got plenty to be resolved over the remainder of the season, because the Rookie Championship is still up for grabs, Vice Championship is still up for grabs, and of course the Spanish Formula 3 Championship, which kicked off in Estoril right back in April, and we'll have events here in Jerez, and then of course also in Barcelona at the end of the month. So a very different challenge for the drivers this weekend. The Jerez circuit as tight and twisty as the Monza circuit is fast and flowing, and qualifying all important here, because the longest straight, which is the section of the circuit we watch Daniel Panenko on now, is only about 600 metres long, so therefore a good grid position absolutely essential. It is, as ever, a 30-minute qualifying session that will set the grid for this 13th race of the Euroformula Open season. And what we'd anticipate is that the drivers will go out, they will do a series of laps on some used Michelin tyres, get the car dialed in, and then the second half of the session is where we'll start to see the grid formed. Well, you join myself, Ben Evans, on an absolutely beautiful day here in Jerez. 33 degrees yesterday afternoon during free practice, and we're expecting it to be much the same again today. So the bulk of the field having taken to the track now, just weaving through the chicane that feeds them in to the final hairpin, and then to the end of the lap. This the tight left-hand hairpin that on the short straight takes them around the back of the paddock, and then through the hairpin and on to the completion of the lap. So in terms of the championship, well, Harrison Scott, our champion. Second in the standings, it is Nikita Troitsky, but the real battle to watch for this weekend might be for third in the championship between Amir Weidenheithen and Yanni Fitcher, because the German, having switched the RP Motorsport team for the Monza round, has now got to within 4 points of Weidenheithen. Likewise, in the Rookie Championship, the battle is pretty close as well between Nikita Troitsky and Yanni Fitcher, just 11 points separating them on drop scores. So we're in car with Lodovico Laurini as the Italian heads out of the pits. And Laurini was very unfortunate last weekend in Monza, in that it was his best qualifying performance of the season so far, but he got caught up in other people's accidents early in both races, tangling with Petru Vrescu in race 1, and then contact with Devon DeFrancesco before the pair of them even got to the opening chicane in race 2, pitching them out of proceedings. But great to have the onboard footage this weekend. What you really get a sense of riding with the Italian is just how busy this circuit is, with the corners coming thick and fast. There's no opportunity for any rest, except maybe along this back stretch. And hard onto the brakes. This is probably the best overtaking opportunity. The corner, of course, where Michael Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve collided in the 1997 European Grand Prix before this sequence of left-handers. And the challenge here is to get right in underneath the rear wing of the car in front. You could maybe, and it's a very big maybe, dart to the inside into turn 9. Not an awful lot of space there. You need to be very close to your rival. The other potential overtaking opportunities here as they head towards the centre chicane, because the preceding corner, it's quite easy to run wide. If you slither wide, then there's just the opportunity to maybe dart to the inside. So Pedro Cardoso has just gone to the top of the times, one of the Teo Martin Motorsport runners, and Cardoso 1:38.4, and that puts him 3.5 tenths of a second up on Cameron Dass, who is currently in second position, running with the Campos team. Watching from the Teo Martin Motorsport pit wall, so they track the progress of their drivers in the relatively early stages of the session. I think we can anticipate to see some improvements. May have had a knife on a reasonably good lap at the moment. So he came out of the second sector. There is the champion, Harrison Scott, and Scott has just been magnificent this year in managing the traffic all the way through qualifying sessions. In Monza last weekend, he was just able to get the right space at the right time. That's his teammate for RP Motorsport, Alex Karkozik, and the Polish driver again, getting quicker with each and every event. He has generally qualified very well this year, but has, as at Monza, been a little bit let down by the first lap shuffle. But here, with such a short run to the first turn, he's well up at the front of the grid, and then possibly that will give him the chance to challenge. We've only had two other drivers, except for Scott, who've won a race this year. They are Amir Weideneifen in Spa in May, and then Thiago Vivacqua in the Hungaroring. It's currently Devlin De Francesco, who is the fastest in the session, at 1 minute 36.9, ahead of Elizo Martinez, another Roteo Martin Motorsport drivers, 1 minute 37.3, and then Amir Weideneifen, De Francesco's Carlin teammate, in third, at 1 minute 37.4. 20 cars out on the circuit. Again, finding the space is going to be one of the real challenges here, as Scott pounds through, and this is likely to be a reasonably good lap for Harrison Scott. And for the time screen to adjust, in fact, he's going into flying lap now. That was a little bit more of a sighting lap for Scott, but he's got, again, as you can see, clear track. Just being careful not to get out onto the AstroTurf at the periphery of each curb, just 'cause it's going to really slow them down, using all the aerodynamic grip through turn 5, then down the short, slight drop along the back straight into turn 6 on the brakes. And this a good first sector for Scott, on a par with the best time that was set by Devlin De Francesco. So potentially this is going to see Scott into the low 1 minute 36-second bracket. Again, he just uses every inch of the road. It's the next right-hander. He's just going to be careful not to squirt out to the edge of the track. Goes over the rumble strips. Very short sprint into the centre chicane. Well, the tail of the car almost kicking out of him, but still really good lap thus far from Harrison Scott. One of the best, if not the best, middle sectors we've seen in the session, as he heads out to the final hairpin, sprints through, and this is going to be, I'd imagine, a fairly impressive benchmark for the rest to go for. Karkozik goes top, Scott follows through, and is immediately 0.4 of a second quicker than his teammate. So Harrison Scott, the early pace setter, and it's an RP Motorsport 1-2-3 as it currently stands, with Karkozik in second, and Fitcher up into third, Devlin De Francesco fourth, ahead of the fastest man in free practice yesterday, that's Campos's Simo Laaksonen in fifth, and then Elizo Martinez in sixth, Amir Weideneifen the second of the Carlin runners in seventh, and Tarun Reddy, who leads the Drivex effort. Now Nikita Troitsky is the man to watch for, second in the championship, but not having the greatest of sessions thus far. As we follow Alex Karkozik, and what's Karkozik doing on this lap? It's not a bad one from the Polish driver, but already it's a little bit slower than Harrison Scott. Karkozik comes towards the end of the second sector. Now what we're looking for is a 62 point something at the end of sector 2, and it was a 63.1 for Karkozik, whereas Harrison Scott's done a 62.7 as Karkozik accelerates through towards the hairpin. So this is a lap that is likely, one would suggest, to consolidate second on the grid, but not do an awful lot more than that, as Karkozik accelerates through, breaks the timing beam now, and that lap actually a little bit slower than his best. 1 minute 1:36.8, the best for Carcosa. That was a 1:37.0. It's Cameron Dass and Christian Hahn. Hahn, who has just had an off-track moment, so he is one of the first drivers to peel into the pits for the mid-session tyre swap, because what we have seen at most circuits this year is they will peel into the pits having done a couple of laps, put on a fresh set of the control compound Michelin tyre they will run with, and then head back out on track to really push later on. Meanwhile, coming towards the end of another tour of the circuit is Pedro Cardoso. This isn't likely to be much of an improvement for the Brazilian. Across the line he comes, a 1:38.1, his best being a 1:37.6. And he's in the turbulent air behind Daniel Liu, the Chinese driver, making just his second appearance in the Euroformula Open. He was very impressive last weekend on his debut in Monza, showing really strong racecraft. So we're yet to see Nikita Troitsky show his hand. We're also, I would suggest, yet to see Ben Hingley, one of the brace of Fortec drivers. One of the Fortec drivers really show what he is capable of. As Jose Martinez into the pits. Petru Florescu currently leading the Fortec charge in 10th position. But hugely confident of a good performance this weekend, as out of the hairpin comes Devlin DeFrancesco, Canadian. Possibly on for a reasonably good lap here. Cross line he comes. 1:37.1, so just a couple of tenths away from the best that we have seen from DeFrancesco, as the pit's now beginning to fill. And then we will get into the end of session shootout. Now with 20 cars, they've got to find space where they don't, like Pedro Cardoso, get caught in the turbulent air of the car in front. As Cardoso ducks in, Liu continues, but he's going to be some way adrift, I think, of his best time. Chinese driver through a couple of tenths indeed off his best, so he remains in 19th place. And there you see the challenge of the turbulent air, a little bit of the under tray as well of Cardoso's car being kicked up. I'd imagine the team would have seen that on the pit wall, possibly just inspect the car. Now here is Mateus Iorio, the reigning Brazilian Formula 3 champion, who has not had the easiest of seasons at all. He's had one podium, that came in the very first race of the year in Estoril. But he's unfortunately had a fair number of incidents along the way, many of which weren't entirely his fault. And Iorio hoping to bounce back with a good result this weekend. He's currently 10th overall. There is his teammate, Simo Laaksonen, who, as the season has unfolded, has really led the Campos Racing charge. The Finn was hugely impressive in Monza last weekend, outright race podium once more, showed some great racecraft as well, really able to manage the early duelling. Of course, 12 months ago, it was at this event in Jerez where Leonardo Pulcini claimed the 2016 Euroformula Open crown, as Laaksonen currently 5th in the session, but he's not going to be improving on this lap. He's already a second down on his best, and more likely than not going to be touring into the pits. We've only got a handful of cars that are not in the pit lane. They're all for Campos, and I'd anticipate they're all going to come in now as well. So we approach the midway point of the session. Harrison Scott, the pace setter, from Alex Karkozic second. Yanni Fitchett is third. Devlin DeFrancesco fourth. Simo Laaksonen fifth. Jose Martinez in sixth. And the Mayor Weidenheithen in seventh. Tarun Reddy in eighth. Petru Florescu in ninth. Mateus Iorio completes the top 10. Header Tiago Vivacqua. Cameron Dass in 12th. Guilherme Samaya going well in 13th. The Pedro Cardoso. Christian Hahn in 15th. And Nikita Troitsky a long way off the pace in 16th. Ludovico Laurini 17th. Ben Hingley would expect to leap up the order in 18th. And then Daniel Liu is in 19th with his BVM teammate Daniel Kronenko completing the field. The entire pack separated by 2.7 seconds. But if you exclude Kronenko, who's not really set an indicative time, then top 19 covered by under 2 seconds, which shows just how competitive this Euroformula Open Championship is. Now, here, with the work that's ongoing there with Nikita Troitsky, they might just be making a few setup adjustments. Laptop gets plugged in to Laxonen's car as well. And the same for Mateusz Joré. They had plenty of free practice time yesterday to get the cars dialed in, and this is a track where many of the teams will have done a fair amount of pre-season testing as well. So at the moment, a little bit of a lull in the on-track action for the spectators, but when the cars do venture out, they will do 1 or 2 laps to warm up the Michelin tyre, and then we will start to see the times being set that are going to form the grid for the 13th race of the season. See new tyres already bolted on to Christian Hahn's car. Hahn just taking on board some instructions. Now, what they've got to be careful of here is also, as they warm up the tyres, not to weave about too much, because we saw a plethora of penalties last weekend in Monza for exactly that. So brand new tyres for Harrison Scott. It was in Jerez a year ago. He made his debut in the championship, that time with Teo Martin Motorsport, and he scored a very impressive podium. But this year he has just been absolutely dominant. Really, really impressive season from Scott, and he has been richly rewarded with a nomination for the McLaren Autosport BRDC Young Driver Award, which means that he is one of the final 4 who progresses to the shootout, and then obviously the prize of a career bursary and the McLaren Formula 1 test drive awaits the winner. Chance to see in car with Lodovico Laurini, just a couple of adjustments to the front wing of the car, maybe dialing in or out a little bit of wing angle. Wonder if there's going to be any similar changes to Thiago Vivacqua, possibly not. All seems calm over at Campos, just tightening all the wheel nuts, making sure absolutely everything is as it should be. All the while, of course, the clock continues to tick down. That's Diego Menchaca passing on a little bit of advice on the left-hand side of your picture. Laurini fully focused on the job ahead. Now, who is going to go first and start to clean the track? The worry for the teams is the drivers that go out first, they'll do a lap to warm the tyres, then they'll go on to a flying lap and be trying to avoid everybody else who is on their out lap. So managing the track position absolutely key. It's Guilherme Samaya for Carlin, who is the first who rumbles along the pit lane to rejoin the fray. 1 minute 36.4, the time to beat from Harrison Scott. And Lou nestled in the cockpit, just in discussion with the engineer. And again, some adjustments to the rear wing. Seems as though possibly lowering it by a degree or 2, just to make the car that little bit more slippery through the straights. Daniel Pronenko not having had the easiest of seasons for the BVM team. He will be aiming to push into the points if he can over the next couple of days. Meanwhile, Samaya, the sole car on circuit, accelerating down the back straight. On the brakes, down through the gears, into the hairpin. Being careful not to push the car too hard. The last thing you want to be doing on an out lap on brand new tyres is flat spot them. Daniel Pronenko about to emerge from the pit lane as well. And the Russian, as he comes out of the 60 km/h pit lane speed controlled area, accelerates away. Accelerating through the first couple of turns for Pronenko. Everybody else still in the pits. We've got now just a third of the session to run. Nathan also out of the pit, so now the track starting to get much busier. they're all going to have probably no more than 3 laps of the peak performance from the Michelin tyres. So this is going to be one of the critical moments of the day, because overtaking here is not as easy as it is at other circuits. Therefore, a good grid position is absolutely essential. Unlike some other championships, however, the Euroformula Open, each race has its own qualifying session, so a poor qualifying session this morning won't necessarily see the drivers being pitched down the order for the whole of the weekend. We'll be looking to try and prevent Harrison Scott scoring his 11th win of the year. Thiago Verwacqua wants to build up the pace, as this is exactly the conundrum for Guillaume Samar we were discussing, which is he is now trying to go onto a quick lap, and he's got Pedro Cardoso ahead of him. And it means that Samar has to back out of the throttle. Petru Florescu and Nikita Troitsky vacated pits in there. The Drivex car of Troitsky, second in the championship. Not seen an awful lot of the Russian so far this session. And then the champion, Harrison Scott, about to get on his way with the armada of RP Motorsport cars. One of the dominant teams in the Euroformula Open over the past few years. They haven't claimed the championship every season, but they are always in the hunt. Always immaculately prepared machinery. Carlo Lodovico Laurini. He heads out onto the track behind teammate Alex Carcosi. Start to keep an eye on the timing screen to see who is pushing. There's Ben Hingley. Devlin De Francesco could be on a flying lap here. He's in the 37-second bracket out of the first sector, and he will be, but he has to dodge around Lodovico Laurini. Pedro Cardoso also looking to push as well. Simo Laaksonen has found himself some good space here. As he heads through turns 2 and 3, but not as yet on a flying lap, I don't think. Still, no, well clear of the edge of the circuit, so he is still building the heat in the Michelin tyre. De Francesco not on a quick lap. Pedro Cardoso, though, could be on for a reasonably good one in the Teo Marti Motorsport car, looking to climb up from 14th. 37.5, 63.4 through the first 2 sectors. It's not going to be a pole position lap by any stretch of the imagination for Cardoso, but it might be a slight improvement on the 1 minute 37.6 that he's offered so far. Laaksonen starts to build up the pace a little bit. Waiting for Cardoso to come through and complete his lap, and that is due any moment as across the line flips Simo Laaksonen. There was a fraction of improvement for Pedro Cardoso, only been a couple of hundredths of a second, so he remains in 14th place, just 6 minutes to run as Amir Weidenheithen now goes top. So Weidenheithen, a 1 minute 36.2, so he's 2 tenths up on Harrison Scott. Here is the Indian driver. This lap, however, not quite as good, only 37.2 through the first sector, and really needs to be at the end of sector 2 sub 63 seconds. As he accelerates towards the Ayrton Senna chicane, a 62.9, so it's not a bad lap this from Weidenheithen, but all indications suggesting it's not going to be quite as good as the previous one. It's line meanwhile for Tarun Reddy and Daniel Pranenko. And Pranenko still unable to improve beyond that 1 minute 39 he set in the early part of the session. Ben Hingley on the good lap in the Fortet car, number 19. So he's currently 19th overall, but likely to improve. Simo Laaksonen also going very, very strongly through sector 1, as is Eliseo Martinez, and Laaksonen for Campos could well be worth keeping an eye on. The order is Weidenheithen, Scott, Karkozic, Yanni Fitcher jumps up to 4th. 1 minute 38.8. Here is Laxonen then. And Laxonen 62.7 as he came out of the end of the second sector as he accelerates through. Now, this may be enough to jump him up the grid somewhat. Indeed it is. He goes second, a 1 minute 36.280, just 14 thousandths of a second off pole. Now the man to watch for is Nikita Troitsky. Troitsky, a very good first sector, a 36.9, but Harrison Scott is an absolute flyer through the first sector. He does a 36.5 as Eliseo Martinez goes third. So the order is Weidenheithen, Laxonen, Martinez. Scott flying, so is Yanni Fitcher. Devlin De Francesco also on a good lap. And the improvements are starting to fly in as we are into the last couple of minutes of qualifying for the Euroformula Open. Here is Yanni Fitcher, 62.3. Harrison Scott, who's just... Oh, and the red flag comes out. And this is going to put the cat amongst the pigeons somewhat, because Scott was on for a fantastic lap. Here is what happened. Oh, it's Pedro Cardoso who goes round coming out of turn 5. Hello, Armco. Oh, dear. Now, this is going to have a huge bearing. He did very well to scrub off the speed there, Cardoso, because that could have been the end of a Dallara F312. As it is, he's just dinked some corners. But the point at which that red flag came out, Harrison Scott has completed the lap, a 1 minute 35.8. Now, whether or not he snuck through just before the red flag came out, we'll find out. So the order, as per our timing screen, Cardoso is fine. The car is actually more or less okay. The order is Scott, from Nikita Troitsky second, Weidenheithen third, Laxonen in 4th, Eliseo Martinez in 5th, Petru Threscu 6th, Alex Karkozic in 7th, Yanni Fitcher in 8th, Mateus Iorio 9th, and Devlin De Francesco in 10th. And with the time remaining in the session, it's going to give them the opportunity for 1 outlap and then maybe 2 flyers. There is Ben Hingley right at the front of the queue, because he is one of several drivers who hasn't yet posted an improvement. He was winding up for a quick lap, so he remains marooned in 19th position. It's very hard to pick up the track position of various cars at the point at which the red flag came out. Nikita Troitsky had certainly completed his lap before the red came out and had gone into pole. Scott was on a good one, and our timing screen was on a slight delay, but Harrison Scott, question mark as to whether or not he'd actually crossed the line before the red flag was shown. Everybody runs down the pit lane to form up in the queue, ready for the 3 3/4 minute restart. And this is always the challenge, isn't it, in these sessions? 20 cars on track. Pedro Cardoso just pushing that little bit too hard. It wasn't a huge mistake, but he hooked a wheel into the gravel, and that was enough to rotate the car. Now, unfortunately, given the proximity of the car to the edge of the circuit, that was that. So Scott consults the live timing, which will tell him that he is currently in pole position. It was an absolutely phenomenal lap, a 1 minute 35.8 from Scott. Leaves him 0.4 of a second up on everybody else. Troitsky into second position, just a couple of hundredths clear of Romeo Weidenheithen. Then Laxonen in 4th. Good lap from Petru Threscu just before the red, elevates him into 6th. So who is relatively out of position is the question, and it is predominantly Ben Hingley who would expect to be well up from 19th. Otherwise, most of our expected front runners, one would suggest, have probably posted a time which more or less puts them where you'd expect to see them on the grid. Maybe Devlin De Francesco would have hoped for a little bit more, because the top 13 separated by 1.1 seconds. Alex Karkozic getting a little bit of a debrief. Karkozic currently in 7th. and he knows what he needs to do when the session does get underway. And track position is going to be all important. When the race starts this afternoon, that is around about 12:35 local time here in Jerez. And our coverage will start 15 minutes or so before then. Ben Hingley at the front of the queue. See the circuit diagram on the steering wheel. Hingley having joined the championship after the summer break in Silverstone. It's been very impressive thereafter as the crane is in place to remove the car of Pedro Cardoso, who had been having a good session up until that point. A 14th overall, showing a lot of pace. So I can't imagine we're that far away from the green flag being shown once more. Ludovico Laurini, another of the drivers who possibly lost out a little bit with the timing of the red flag, because you've got the top 14 covered by 1.3 seconds, then a gap of about half a second back to Thiago Vivacqua in 15th. And it's the last 6 or so cars in the standings who haven't really had the opportunity to post the time. So Scott in conversation with his engineer. On 1 minute 35.8, the mark to beat. Now the problem for these drivers being that particularly as this red flag continues, that the heat cycle on the tyres will just be coming to an end, and so they're going to need at least a lap to get some heat into the tyre. Whether or not it's going to offer the same performance that it was just for the red flag, we will find out in due course. Well, hopefully not too much damage for Cardoso. The bulk of the field, really with the exception of some of the RP Motorsport drivers, all formed up at the end of the pit lane. No confirmation as yet as to when the session is going to restart. But given that they were just going to winch the car of Cardoso over the Armco barrier, it shouldn't be too protracted a delay. Indeed, there you see the excavation. Just damage to the left-hand side suspension, probably 2 new corners on the car. But Cardoso did a very good job as the car went around of scrubbing off the speed, because that was possibly about the highest speed point on the circuit to lose the car. So the session will restart in 25 seconds time. Green flag being readied. 3 3/4 minutes away to set the grid for the 13th race of the Euroformula Open season. The cars get fired up, mechanics move aside. It's now going to be a surge onto the circuit. And the green flag is waved and Hingley accelerates out. He is followed immediately by Devlin De Francesco. Those are 2 drivers who will be looking to post an improvement. Francesco just buying himself a little bit of track space over Ben Hingley. Laxman, Thiago Vivacqua, he needs to find something more from 15th. Cameron Dass's teammate, currently 11th. Vivacqua darting through Simo Laxman, he needs the track space. The outlaps have been in the region of a 1 minute 50 seconds, so those at the front of the queue are going to have the opportunity to post 2 flying laps. Those further down the chain are going to have the chance for 1 flying lap. And yes, Harrison Scott's lap time has been deleted, that 1 minute 35.8. We did wonder whether or not he had set it before the red flag came out. The answer is he hadn't, so that now pushes the champion, Harrison Scott, down to 5th overall. So Troitsky is our pace setter. It's a 1 minute 36.2, which is the mark to beat. Harrison Scott remains in the pit lane as well. Not for long, he rejoins the track. The whole field on the circuit. There's the confirmation. That time deleted for Harrison Scott. So Scott is going to have a job on. Nikita Troitsky, an opportunity for him to score a first victory of the season if he can maintain that pole position. Clock ticking down all the while, and unless they cross the line with 1 minute 40 remaining, then this is going to be the final shot at it. Thiago Vivacqua, it means he's going to get 2 rolls of the dice. The same for Devlin De Francesco, who accelerates into the lap now. Thrilling end to the session as Terran Reddy and Daniel Panenko jostle for track position. Nikita Troitsky currently holds the pole position. He is just going to get 1 more lap because there is now less than a lap time remaining in the session. For Harrison Scott, likewise, he is only going to get 1 shot to improve from 5th. Ben Hingley, he's the first of the drivers who's out on track and on a flying lap. Watching the live timing, a 37.2 from Hingley, so he is immediately on it in the Fortec car and is at the front of the queue effectively. So we follow Troitsky. Hingley looking for a good lap. What about Devlin De Francesco? 37.0 from De Francesco. So the drivers immediately there or thereabouts in terms of pace. Maybe a little bit of drift. Nikita Troitsky to the end of this first sector. So I'm having a big lock up at the hairpin. A 36.9 for Troitsky, so he is quicker, or the quickest of all the cars currently on the flying lap through the first sector. Hingley, meanwhile, a 63.0 coming out of sector 2. Devlin De Francesco at 62.6. So De Francesco is the man maybe to keep an eye on. The Carlin driver coming towards the end of the lap. He's in the middle of the final sector at the moment. As Hingley flashes through, he goes 6th with that lap, Ben Hingley, a 1 minute 36.660. Devlin De Francesco goes 4th, a 1 minute 36.3. And Troitsky's lap is ruined here behind Daniel Pranenko. Troitsky is going to be unable to improve as the clock ticks to 0. It's only a couple of them who are going to get 1 more run at this. Nikita Troitsky is not one of them. Daniel Pranenko crosses the line. He is going to remain down in 20th position. Florescu flashes through. He goes 8th. Here is Harrison Scott, and Scott is on the cusp of doing it again. He's had an excellent first 2 sectors on the lap and is half a second up on Karl Kozik, who is just ahead of him on the road. And Scott, once more, it would appear, when he's needed to pull out of the bag, may well be able to pull it off. He heads through the final hairpin, accelerates towards the checkered flag. Across the line goes one of the other RP Motorsport cars. Harrison Scott takes the checkered flag now and goes quickest, a 1 minute 35.8 from Scott. Fantastic lap. So he takes pole position by 0.4 of a second. Troitsky won't improve. He's taken the flag. Simo Laaksonen, Devlin De Francesco and Ben Hingley are all still on laps. And it's Laaksonen and De Francesco who are about to take the checkered flag who may yet find an improvement. Here's the Finnish driver. Simo Laaksonen did a 62.5 at the end of the first sector. Now that rate of progress should be enough to put him on the front row of the grid, depending on what De Francesco does. De Francesco goes 2nd. Laaksonen accelerates to the flag now and crosses the line and goes 3rd, fractionally behind Devlin De Francesco, as Matteo Iorio is the last of the drivers to take the checkered flag. So the classification is pole position for Harrison Scott. Devlin De Francesco goes 2nd. Row 2, Simo Laaksonen and Nikita Troitsky, and the Mayor Vida. And here it is in full. Scott in pole. De Francesco 2nd and top rookie. Laaksonen and Troitsky 3rd and 4th. And Mayor Vida in 5th, ahead of Eliseo Martinez. Another great job from Martinez. Yanni Fitcher, a lot to do from 7th. Same for RP Motorsport teammate Alex Karkozik. Ben Hingley and Petru Florescu making all Fortec a row 5. And then Matteo Iorio to 11th, head of compatriot Guilherme Savaya. Ludvika Laurinian 13th, clear of Cameron Das. Thiago Vivacqua unable to improve from 15th, ahead of the Drivex teammates Taryn Reddy and Christian Hahn. Pedro Cardoso, who brought out the red flag, in 18th, and then BVM teammates Daniel Liu and Daniel Pranenko completing the field. Thrilling session for the Euroformula Open, but pole position once more for the champion Harrison Scott. We will be racing just after 12:30 here in Jerez today. Make sure you don't miss it. It promises to be very entertaining indeed. But Harrison Scott dominant once more in qualifying for the Euroformula Open. Let's see if he can convert it to his 11th victory of the season. Until then, from Ben Evans in Jerez, it's goodbye.
Thank you.